Hi, I'm Mallory.
And I'm Laura, and we are joining you today from our newly renovated community room here in our Human Resources Center because the weather outside is just terrible. So we are inside, but we love this space, so we're happy to do it.
Yeah. So, nice little change of environment too.
Yeah.
So Laura, I wanted to tell you something that I have noticed recently.
Okay.
So we're all experiencing this pandemic, right? And we're experiencing it in different ways. Some of us are frontline workers that are still going to work at hospitals, and some of us are working from home full time for the first time, things like that. But I have consistently noticed that people are using the same terms to describe how they're feeling. People keep saying, everyone that I talk to is saying that they're overwhelmed, that it's too much. Have you experienced that? What do you think about that?
Yes, I have noticed that as well. There's just some common terminology and common experiences. And I think that it's really important, particularly when we're hearing the same things over and over again, to pay attention to what they are, right? So somebody may be saying, oh, they're feeling anxiety, or somebody may be feeling depression, but even the person who's not reporting feeling any of those things, I'm seeing is still reporting that they're overwhelmed and that it's a lot, right? So, so I do think that there's some tools that we can use that help us kind of sort through the a lot. And I like the actual real tangible kind of almost scientific or puzzle kind of tools, right? So when I'm feeling that way, one of the things I really like to do is it's kind of a long process. It's a multi-step process, but it helps me spend time with my stressors so I really understand them better, and then I can deal with them better too. But I start with making a huge list of everything that is stressing me out. Right?
Okay.
So I'll put, if you had to do that, what are some things that you would put on your list right now?
I would put that the pandemic is stressing me out.
Okay, and totally valid, but for this, we want to make sure that we get very specific, right? Because it's that lack of being specific that I think leads us to overwhelmed and a lot, right?
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
Yeah, so what about the pandemic specifically is stressing you out, right?
Yeah.
So when we start asking questions like that, we start to get multiple things, right? And so, and even there, we might get, well, work. Okay, all right, well, dig deeper.
What about work?
Right? What about, exactly.
Specifically.
Yes.
Yeah.
So is it like I'm having trouble being motivated, right? Or I'm having trouble because of barriers from the pandemic meeting deliverables. Or I'm, concerned about going to work. I'm concerned about not going to work, right? All of those things. So now you see what we did just by asking a few questions. We now have 5 or 6 items to put just under work. Now we can go to family. Now we can go to the world, the economy, all of those things. Our kids, right? It's so easy when I talk to other mamas and I'm like, well, my kids are stressing me out. And then we end the conversation there. Well, what is it? Is it their behavior? Is it your ability to deal with their behavior? Is it their summer camp was canceled and you're worried that they're not going to have anything to do? Are you worried that their socialization is going to suffer? Are you worried that they fell behind in school? There's a lot of stuff. Are you worried about all of that? Right? So maybe all of that, doesn't that sound overwhelming and like a lot, right?
It does, really.
Right? So we take all of those things and put them on one giant list. So that's step number 1, is to get real specific and put a whole bunch of things on the list of things that stress us out. Then and I like to actually write them down because we're going to do some stuff with that list, right? So just write it all down and then take that list, and this is where it starts to get challenging, and separate it into 2 lists. One of mark the ones that are a big deal and the ones that are a little deal.
How do I know what is a big deal and what's a little deal?
That's a valid question, right? And I wish that I had a real specific formula for you, but I don't. You get to decide, right? But there's some beacons that we can use to guide our way, and it's the same things that we look at when we're trying to determine, is our anxiety out of control, is our depression out of control, things like that. We look at impact on our lives and duration, right, and intensity and that kind of thing. So little deals can really stress us out, but it doesn't mean that they're a big deal. It doesn't make them a big deal, right? So we have to be very honest on this list, and we have to say, this is a big deal because it's impacting my life in a big way. It's changing the trajectory of my life somehow, or it's going to still matter next year or in 2 years or in 5 years, right? This is a little deal, even though it's driving me bonkers, right? It really doesn't matter in the great big scheme of things, and it isn't impacting my life path at all, right?
And you won't remember it a year from now,
right?
Something.
Exactly.
Okay,
so
that makes sense.
now it's not that we're just going to forget about those things we put on we're going to deal with them, right? But differently. So so now we've identified what's a big deal and what's a little deal, and then we're going to make 2 more lists. So we're going to separate each one of those lists into 2. Okay. So we're going to look at our big deals, and we're going to decide what we can control and what we can't.
Gotcha.
And we're going to look at our little deals, and we're going to decide what we can control and what we can't.
Okay.
So that's kind of hard because we might be looking at a big stressor, and there might be a whole lot about it that we can't control, but there may be some measure of control that we have. Right? So like, if the news is stressing us out, well, we can't control the news. We can't control what airs, and we can't control the news that's out there to report. But we can control our access to it, and that's something that we've talked about before, right? So it's the tiniest thing sometimes that puts it in the category of what we can control. So now we have 4 lists, 4 buckets, right? So we have big deals we can control, big deals we can't control, little deals we can control, and little deals we can't control.
Gotcha.
So let me ask you this question. Where do you think most people spend their time and energy and resources? Which one of those 4 lists do you think that people focus on the most?
I feel like we should focus on the big deals, but I feel like we probably focus on the little deals.
We do. And it's even worse than that. We focus on the little deals that we can't control.
Oh, of course we do.
And we do that. Do you know why we do that?
I have no idea.
We do that because all the other 3 lists involve action and change.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's easy to complain about stuff that we don't have to do anything about.
Yes.
Right?
It is so easy. We can have a cup of coffee with our friends, and we can just
talk about it.
right? We can just complain about those things, and it feels good, right?
Yeah.
But we're not actually solving anything, right? And that's not actually what is overwhelming to us or too much, right? That's just the stuff that we can talk about, and it's not as scary, and we don't have to change. Even change we know we need and change we want and action we want can be hard and can be scary, right? So we shy away from it, and we go into the list that I call the suck it up list, because it's a little deal and you can't control it, so you might as well just suck it up, right? So we have that over there. When really where we should be putting our energy is in the big deals that we can control.
Got it. Makes sense.
And a couple of things happen when we do that. Number 1, your ability to cope with the things in the other 3 boxes is just so much more improved, right? And that's the point, right? The point is never of any of these tools to make our problems go away completely, or to minimize them, or to pretend they're not a big deal.
Right.
It's just to make us happier and healthier and more productive and have better relationships, and just improve our lives, right?
Yeah.
So if we spend a little bit of time, energy, and resources in the big deal stressors that we can control in some way, the other ones aren't so bad. Okay? The other thing that happens is that some of them are connected, right? So we talked about, like when we talked about family, right? We talked about my kids are driving me bonkers, right? And we talked about all the different things that, are stressing us out there. Well, when we've done some work on one of those, now home is a little bit better, right?
True.
The kids' behavior might be a little bit better, right? So some of those other stressors, they're still there, but they get smaller.
Yeah.
And we can cope better with them. So it's like a double whammy of impact. And you haven't spent any energy on them. You've done something that's over here. It's just a domino effect, right?
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's really to our benefit if we just take that giant list, go through those steps so that we can isolate those big deals that we can control. And that we can spend our time there. So my challenge to you guys out there who are watching is, when you've done that and you've got your smaller list of the big deals that you can control, come up with 1, maybe 2 actions that you can take just this week. Small, big, it doesn't matter, just actions that you can take, something you can do to address or somehow make better the things that are in your box of big deals that you can control. and just see what happens, because I think that you'll find it will impact you in ways that are bigger than the small action that you took.
And remember, if things are becoming overwhelming or you feel like you need help, Meridian is by your side. We're still open for services. You could always give us a call at 352-374-5600.
Thanks.
Bye,
Have a great
guys.
week.